The Burning Crusade is right around the corner, with the pre-patch launching on January 13th, 2026, and with a new expansion comes some massive class changes. In this video, we're breaking down the best classes going into TBC, which specs are rising to the top, and which ones might be dookie. Before we talk about specific classes, we need to cover the biggest change Blizzard is bringing to TBC Anniversary. Bloodlust and Heroism are now raid-wide, and they reset on every boss kill and wipe. In original TBC, Bloodlust only buffed your 5-man party. A 10-minute debuff prevented multiple lusts, and raids had to micromanage small buff groups around that debuff timer. But in TBC Anniversary, every DPS and every healer gets lust at the same time, and you get a fresh lust on every single pull. This massively increases raid burst damage, consistency, and progression speed. However, this is where people get confused. Totems are not raid-wide, they are still party-wide, which means melee groups will still want an enhancement shaman for Wind Fury, caster groups will still want an elemental shaman for Totem of Wrath, and tank groups still benefit from specific totem setups, and having one shaman per party remains the optimal configuration. So yes, Bloodlust now hits the entire raid every attempt, but party composition still matters because totems have not changed. It's Wrath-style Bloodlust with classic TBC party strategy. So with that foundation in place, let's jump into the actual class rankings. Starting with Warlocks, Warlocks dominated in original TBC, and they're still one of the strongest DPS options going into TBC Anniversary. Why? Well, Destruction pumps insane single target damage, especially during Lust. There's two playstyles that exist. One is Shadow, which focuses on Shadow Bolts, and Fire, which focuses on Incinerates. You also have Affliction Warlocks, which isn't really a top DPS spec, but it brings essential debuffs like Malediction, which increases the damage of Curse of Elements, and in which Curse of Elements now includes the old Curse of Shadows effects, consolidating debuffs from vanilla. Most raid comps run with 3 to 5 Warlocks, primarily Destruction with 1 Affliction for debuffs. Warlocks also get the new AoE ability Seed of Corruption, and during trash packs you will see them doing massive AoE damage. Warlocks have exceptional scaling every phase with new tier sets. They also still have infinite mana with life tap, and just having the Bloodlust raid wide resets amplify their cooldown windows and burst potential. So the verdict is Warlocks benefit the most from raid wide lust. If you do play a Warlock, you're not dookie, you're meta royalty. Next on the list we have Hunters. They were top tier early in TBC and nothing changes here. In fact, they're stronger. Pets scale extremely well because they now inherit the Hunter's attack power and crit. Rotation is also smoother with new abilities like Steady Shot and Kill Command. They also have Aspect of the Viper, which allows in-combat mana regeneration. Traps are also now usable in combat, and they also get Misdirection, which provides a huge utility for redirecting their threat to the tanks. Beast Mastery offers some of the highest DPS in early TBC, so keeping your pet alive is everything. If your pet dies, your DPS collapses, but controlled properly, BM is insane. And while Hunters fall off closer to Sunwell, they remain consistently competitive all expansion. In raid comps, many guilds run 4 Hunters, 3 BM plus 1 survival for exposed weakness, boosting the entire raid's attack power by 25% of the survival Hunter's agility. So Hunters are extremely strong early TBC and remain relevant into the late game. Next on the list we have Shamans, which bring a massive amount of utility and see major improvements in Anniversary. General changes include Shaman is now both playable on Horde and Alliance thanks to the Draenei, and we also have new Wrath of Air Totem, which increases spell damage and healing. Bloodlust obviously now raid wide and resets on boss kill wipe, obviously massive for Shamans in a raid comp. Instead of all the Shamans trying to consolidate their Bloodlust at the same time, one Shaman can activate Bloodlust and the whole raid gets it. Enhancement Shaman gains dual wield specialization, which is a big boost in DPS. Storm Strike now hits with both weapons when dual wielding, and they just have overall strong personal DPS. It's just not a buff bot anymore. Enhancement is required for melee groups because of Unleash Unleashed Rage, increasing party attack power by 10%. They do have weaker early raid DPS compared to Elemental, but during the mid to late game, Enhanced starts to shine and outscales Ellie. When it does come to Ellie Shamans, Totem of Wrath remains insanely strong for casters and healers, scales well with haste and crit. They're strong, consistent early DPS, but they do fall off somewhat late game compared to Enhanced Locks and Hunters. When it comes to Restoration Shamans, they get the new Earth Shield talent, which makes them phenomenal tank healers. Mana Tide Totem now restores 6% mana per tick instead of a flat amount, and Chain Heal gets even stronger through talents and skills extremely well with haste. So every party still wants a Shaman. Early TBC, you'll see 4 to 5 Shamans per raid, but late TBC, up to 6, especially as melee DPS increases. Next on the list are Mages, which are extremely strong early on in TBC. Arcane Mages are a top early tier DPS. Rotation is basically an Arcane Blast spam, and they have huge burst windows with arcane power and presence of mind. They're the best early game caster spec, but they fall off hard noticeably in later phases. Now when it comes to Fire Mages, Ignite now gives each Fire Mage their own Ignite debuff, unlike in Vanilla where mages could only have one Ignite debuff on a boss, and if you were the mage to get Ignite, well then you would get that DPS bonus on locks. Despite being strong in Vanilla, Fire becomes much weaker in TBC due to reliance on crit and weaker raw fire damage. When it comes to Frost Mages, it's primarily a PvP spec, not a raid DPS pick, but they are an S tier PvP class when it does come to arenas. So early on, Mages are amazing. Mid to late TBC, they fall off and become more utility focused. You can expect 2 to 3 Mages early on, but later on, you only usually see 1 to 2 Mages get brought for utility. Number 5 on the list is Paladins, which shine in TBC thanks to new abilities, and they can be played on both factions. Horde gets Paladins via Blood Elves, and both factions will most likely still have access to Seal of Blood and Seal of Vengeance, just like in 2019's progression into TBC Classic. When it comes to Prot Paladin, they are the best AoE tank in TBC. Avenger Shield is incredible for pulls. Holy Shield now increases threat by 35% instead of 20%, and they're strong even in single target tanking. Ret Paladins gain Crusader Strike, adding a much needed rotational depth. Still more utility than a DPS spec, but Rets provide improved Seal of the Crusader, increasing raid crit by 3%. So they're 100% viable, they're just not a top DPS choice. Holy Paladins provide some of the strongest single target healing in the expansion. Divine Illumination, which is the new talent in the Holy Tree, reduces spell cost by 50% for 15 seconds. Holy Paladins are kind of weak when it comes to raid-wide healing, but unmatched for tank healing. So Paladins provide massive utility and fill essential roles. You can kind of see maybe like 1 Ret, 1 Prot Paladin, and 1 Holy Paladin getting brought to your raid comp. Number 6 on the list is Warriors, and they do undergo some major performance changes. Whereas in Vanilla, they're a lot more bursty, especially with crit, whereas in TBC, their damage is a lot more consistent with a lot less burst. So when it comes to Fury, it's weak early on, but extremely strong late game. They are weapon dependent, so if you give them a set of legendary Warglaives of Azeroth, they will dominate the leaderboards. So in early TBC, they perform right below Locks, Hunters, and Mages, but in late game, if they have the right weapons, they will be a top tier DPS. When it comes to Protection Warriors, Devastate makes Sunder stacking easier. They have good single target, but kind of eclipsed by Prot Paladin and Feral Druid. They're strong, they're just not required. So Warriors, like I said, early on, they're kind of mid-tier DPS. Late game, they're amazing with the right weapons. You will usually see 1 Arms Warrior in the raid for Blood Frenzy, and then Fury shines mid to late TBC. Number 7 on the list is Rogue. So Rogues actually decline heavily in early TBC compared to Vanilla. Combat is mainly brought for improved exposed armor. Combat does need armor penetration gear to catch up, which you don't really get until mid to late game. Rogues also gain the new talent Surprise Attacks, preventing finishing move, dodges, and buffing combo builders, but still mid-tier early on. If anything, in my opinion, they're low, just due to the fact that this 10% buff that they get is not really even a buff. It's still kind of mediocre. Rogues, you still really only see one of them brought to raid, but however, they still do have solid cleave with Blade Flurry. When it comes to subtlety, they are PvP kings. They gain Shadow Step for huge bursts, which lets you teleport behind a target, gaining 70% movement speed, and then buffing your next damaging ability. They also gain a new ability, Shiv, which applies offhand poison instantly, which is great for PvP control. Raids usually, like I said, will only bring that one rogue early on. Late game, they pick up, but warriors still edge them out for legendary priority due to warriors performing right above a combat rogue. Number 8 on the list is priests. So priests bring powerful healing and essential raid support. When it comes to holy priests, Circle of Healing, which is their new talent, becomes one of the best raid-wide heals in TBC. Most raids bring at least one holy priest. When it comes to discipline, they have good utility with pain suppression and power infusion. The healing is still overshadowed by holy for raw healing output, but many raid comps run with one holy and one disc priest. Shadow, on the other hand, is kind of a mana battery for hunters, mages, and warlocks. They're usually also brought because the talent Misery increases spell damage taken by 5%, which is a must. They're also strong early on in raids like Karazhan, but then they fall off extremely hard mid to late game. So most raid comps will see one Shadow, one Holy, and one Disc Priest in their raid comps. And lastly, number 9 on the list is Druid. So all specs gain access to Cyclone, which is one of the best PvP CC abilities pretty much ever added for a Druid in the game. Druids get some meaningful buffs across all specs. When it comes to Restoration, Tree of Life form makes them one of the best healers in TBC, outstanding for long fights and raid survivability. Feral gains a Mangle, which boosts tanking and DPS. They have excellent single target threat generation. Leader of the Pack gives 5% crit to melee and ranged, and Feral DPS is overall kind of weak. Feral is primarily brought just for tanking. When it comes to a balanced druid, the Moonkin Aura crit buff is buffed from 3% to 5%, and they also get improved Fairy Fire, which adds 3% hit for the entire raid. Their overall DPS is weak, and they are mana starved throughout the entire expansion. Usually one Boomkin gets brought to raid, so they can provide the raid with Moonkin Aura and Fairy Fire. So Druid tanks and healers are top tier, but balance and Feral DPS, they're very weak throughout all of the expansion. So when it comes to overall class winners in TBC, the big winners are Warlocks, BM Hunters, Shamans, Arcane Mages early on in like phase 1, and then Fury Warriors late into TBC. The worst performers out of all of TBC are Rogues early on in raids, Ret Paladins, which are good utility, they're just not a meta DPS. Shadow Priests fall off insanely hard in phase 2 and beyond, and Balance and Feral DPS is just super inconsistent. So those are the best and worst classes going into the Burning Crusade Anniversary, and exactly why raid-wide Bloodlust flips the entire progression meta, while still keeping TBC's party-based gameplay intact. Let me know what class you're thinking of playing, and tell me which spec you think will be the strongest, and which will be completely dookie. Not a single frost vulnerability, holy.
I got 99!
Did you really?
Yeah.
Nice. Mana Igniting Cord. That's this for me.